Hello, I'm Cathy.
I'm Rachel.
And I'm Oliver. Welcome to the Bookish Book Club.
Ooh, I like that noise. That was a good noise. It is nearly the full moon for December. It's the full moon on Sunday, and this month the moon is the cold moon. So the train of thought that we've had is that when you're cold, like something makes you cold, you're like turned off. So we're thinking about things that turn us cold when we're reading books. So we're going to talk about our bookish pet peeves. And Cathy's thought of a fun little gimmick where each time we say a pet peeve, because it turns us cold, we're going to put an item of warm clothing on.
Yeah. To warm us up again.
Yeah.
So yeah, these are all things that leave us cold when we encounter them in books. My first pet peeve is, and it was all a dream. That's not a very original pet peeve to have. I think it's quite a wide thing that people do not like it. When at the end of a story, it was all a dream. Like in my writing classes at uni, we were told definitely do not do it. So you think you wouldn't come across it enough to make you annoyed about it. But it's happened to me twice this year.
Wow.
So this is top of my list because twice I got to the end of quite long books that I wasn't that keen on anyway. And at the end, it was all a dream, or it was all a parallel universe, or it was all the imaginings of a character of what might have been instead of what had happened. And it is so frustrating and annoying, and it makes you feel like, what's the point? And I don't know why it makes me feel so cross, because it's all fiction. So on one hand, it is all a dream anyway, but when it's not real in the book that you're reading, even when you know the book isn't real, it angers me. So that leaves me, I don't sound very cold, I sound hot and bothered, don't I? It leaves me cold. So if it was all a dream, I'm gonna go with a hat first.
Okay.
If it was all a dream, that leaves me feeling cold.
This is so stupid. My first pet peeve is, I mean, this feels very generic, but if something is just badly written, like, why is this book being published? You know?
Yeah.
Think about the words that you're writing. Is that too
So, you know,
judgmental?
when
of
it's
me?
so badly written that you just, it pulls you out of it to the point where you think, like, how did this get published?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I also saw a question on Twitter saying something like, would you rather have great story idea, great plot, but badly written, or greatly written, brilliantly written, but boring plot?
Wait, but if it's greatly written, then how could it be boring?
Wow.
Do I want either of those?
Involved.
I don't want to answer that question. I'm just going to angrily put my hat on.
Okay, bad writing.
Brrrr, I'm so cold.
Another thing that leaves me cold is she's not like the girls.
I'm going to jump back because I think
you got more to
your
say.
question, there's an element to, if your story is good enough, there can be some forgiveness to how simplistic your writing is. And it's not that simplistic writing is bad writing. Like, that's not true. Sometimes using simple sentences and descriptions and things like that is specific for the story that you're writing, and that's like a conscious choice.
Yeah.
So maybe that's not really the answer to the question that you asked, but I go back to your second pet peeve.
I think I remember one that you didn't. That was really badly written.
Oh yeah.
For book club, you read one,
I did.
and it was just really bad.
Oh, you did remember that. That was a Sarah Jane Maas. I rage about it so much that all I remember. If
the writing is cringy, that's what I mean. When I mean something's badly written, I don't know, and I know that cringy isn't a very good word to use to describe something, but this. I feel like people will understand what I mean by that.
My second pet peeve is I'm not like other girls. I hate it. I hate it when the main female character, or any female character really, in a book is portrayed to be in a way that is unlike every other girl. Like, she's a radical. Like, she doesn't like dresses, or she doesn't like stereotypical female things, or she's not into love and she can't understand where the women are, or she doesn't like the way other women are gossipy, or things like that. It just so irritates me because obviously I just don't think women share a personality. And if you don't fit a personality, you're no longer part of womanhood. And I think there's lots of variety in what women like and enjoy. And I don't like the way it disparages things that are perfectly acceptable
Yeah.
to like or want. I don't like framing a character in terms of what they're not, anyway. And you can be interested in something that's maybe unusual for the culture you're in, and it's fine. You don't need to diss all the people who are into it.
Brrrr.
I'll tell you, I read one example like this year, I think, where it was like in the opening chapter, wrapping up against it because it just left me so cold. In the opening chapter where this character's at a wedding, she's like, oh, I never really dreamed about weddings when I was a child. Like all the other girls around me, I never thought of it. And then goes on to describe what a perfect wedding would be. So I'm like, so...
Okay, hypocrite, sure.
Yeah. You're doing the very thing. So it's okay. It's okay for women to be like other women.
So my second pet peeve is when things are put in for the token of it, like, oh, this book needs to have I don't know, forced proximity, I don't know. So I have to artificially construct this situation where they are in this, and like then they have to talk about their feelings. And
so trying to hit like the TikTok tropes.
Yeah. Yeah. Or like, I also feel like there's a trend with more modern romance fiction that you've got to get one certain, like, you've got to have, in your list of characters, you have to have at least one lesbian. I don't know, well, I don't know why I'm saying this, but...
No, so something to hit every demographic on the, like, protected characteristics thing.
Yeah, yeah, and like, I love when books are diverse and when like these casts of characters do have representation for different areas of society. But if you're just doing it to mark it off a list, then it's not authentic and it's not adding to the book in any way, and it just feels really forced and contrived to me. And like there are some books that I've read where, you know, like it's like, oh, and this is my friend who is gay. Does that make sense? And it's well, okay, show me that they're gay instead of just saying and then they're gay and then it's never mentioned again.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah. And sometimes I think when that's done so poorly, you miss the opportunity to really explore different cultures for what they are. Like for example, I love in Wheel of Time, even though that starts very much like you've got this little group of characters all from the same village, on the same zone, but as they go out and explore different cultures, you get to see lots of different ways of living and societies and values and traditions and ways of interacting, and it feels so authentic because it has consequences. These characters aren't just turned up and like, oh yeah, this is of such and such a race. You learn about them and how they think and how they feel, and it's not just because of that race in this history, in this village, in this situation, and it just makes it more rounded. So when it's done really well, it's great. When it's done to tick the box and only to tick the box, it leaves you really cold.
Yeah.
I didn't do that on purpose that time.
Cold. Like, I want my rep to be authentic rep.
Yeah.
Not just tick a box rep. I don't like that.
Yes, I agree.
Boo.
She does it so much better. Okay, my third pet peeve is unnecessary flashbacks.
We say this all the time.
I feel like you always talk about this when we do our Stormlight videos.
Yeah, I am sorry, because
you are.
Stormlight video does get grief from me for this. But I do encounter it in other books too. In fact, there's another book that I just read that I had it in. And it frustrates me. I think for me, my preferred way of learning about a character's history is seeing how they interact with the situation they're in the main of the book. So if somebody hits a crisis and like they're timid with it because maybe they've been burnt in the past, and then it comes out in maybe they have to eventually recount to another character about it. Love that. I love the opening up and sharing of who you are. If I just see a flashback of like, oh, I was in a house fire and that happened, it's just not as exciting for me because I know they got out. You know, like I just find flashbacks very rarely hold my attention, and I would much prefer the information in there to be delivered in the real time.
Within the narrative.
Yeah, rather than going back.
It's good if you go back to like something you didn't know.
Maybe if it's something I really didn't know, I can cope with that. Especially
Like
if it's...
maybe if it was a flashback to the house fire, like it's revealed that somebody else died in there, or the reason that the POV character survived the fire is because somebody came in to rescue them. Like,
Yes, that's exactly it. If the flashback reveals something that we couldn't work out from the text so far, love it. Especially if it's something that the character themselves doesn't know about. But if it's just to tell me what the character knows, I'm not that interested.
Okay.
So unnecessary flashbacks leave me cold.
I'm gonna do it every time. My next peeve is when something is like, you can tell that something is poorly researched. If you're going to include something in your book, you have to put in the research into it.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm not saying that I know everything in the world, but if there's something that I can clearly either know myself that that's not right, or it could very easily go onto the internet and immediately disprove it, then there's a problem there.
Yeah.
In the Maze Runner books, which I have not read the whole series, I haven't even read all of the first Maze Runner, because in like chapter 3 or something, the premise of Maze Runner is that I think
I've seen the films.
Okay, so people like go to this, they get put in this maze, and the people there are talking about how they've been there for so many years, and there's maybe like 2 deliveries of children a year, but then they were the numbers that were listed of the children, I could immediately see that they didn't correlate to however long they had been in there. And maybe like further in the novel it's revealed that like, I don't know, the
bunch got wiped out or something.
I don't know, but it just like that frustrated me so much that I never read any further. I was like, the math is not mathing. That makes me cold.
Yeah. If the facts aren't facting.
Yeah. That was a really bad example. I'm really sorry. I think my issue, you know what, a lot of the time I'm quite easily pleased, so even if something does annoy me in a book, I will probably just persist with it, apart from the Maze Runner, which I immediately threw across the room in disgust. You've been here for 12 years, but there's 50 children, even though you get 2 deliveries a year? Nonsense. That's not right.
Not having it.
I don't know if that's specifically what it said.
24.
Maze Runner fans, if there's any of you watching this video.
I thought you were say if there are any of you. That's really harsh. I've not read the book, but the films didn't make much sense. I think I watched 2 of the films.
Feel free to come and correct me.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I'm putting my coat on backwards because I don't want to lean forward to put it on behind me. Brrrr, that makes me cold. I also don't like when, if I'm reading a series, and the next book in the series starts with too much recap of what has already happened.
Yes. I think you either read the books beforehand, or you don't.
And you just have to try and remember what's happening.
Yeah. And because, like, Ola and I, we had this week, we started reading a book that you'd bought that actually turned out to be the 3rd book in the series. That we didn't really realise until we sat down to read it. And the first 2 or 3 pages was completely incomprehensible because they were trying to recap what happened in the last 2 books. And really, I think if they just dived into the adventure, we probably would have had a better chance of getting into it.
So I've been reading the Locado's trilogy this year, and at the start of book 2, before the story of book 2 starts, it has like a 2-page recap of the events of the first book.
But it's not the book.
Yeah, and I found that really, really useful.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed having that there. So if you're writing a sequel in a series, just put a little recap at the beginning.
Yeah.
Don't rehash things.
No.
Just put a little recap in the beginning.
Do you know, I think Lord of the Rings does that.
Well, Lord of the Rings is all one book, isn't it?
Well, yeah, technically. But, like, I think, like, 2000 Return of the King has a little, like, the story so far.
Here's what you missed.
In the preface.
Oh, Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, previously.
Imagine if the first 10 minutes of every episode of a TV show that you watched was just, like, people saying, oh, and do you remember when we did this yesterday?
Yeah.
That's what the previously on is for.
Yeah.
You're wasting valuable real estate in your novel if you're spending the first 5 chapters having like conversations recapping what has already been done.
Yeah, and I find it really funny. You know which books do it particularly badly? Detective series books. I've had it a few times because you can pick up a detective book and they're all standalone, really, aren't they? But sometimes, like, they might think, oh, hang on, this character's had like 20 cases that they've solved already in the series. So at one point they're going like, oh yes, and then do you remember when his ex-girlfriend was held hostage by that mafia boss, and then he did this and then did that. It's like thrown in a paragraph and then never mentioned again. Like, oh, this was clearly a previous adventure that they've just remembered. We better shoehorn something in. Cool. So yeah, occasionally detective books do that really badly, where they just try and hint to other stuff that has not just hint. I'd love a hint. I can cope with a hint. It's when like they try and.
Like, if you put a little nod in there that someone who has read the other book, they will catch that. That's great. That's a little Easter egg for you.
Yeah.
But going into detail about it,
no,
I don't want it.
Goodbye.
I feel like I really struggled to think of pet peeves in the body of the video, And then at the end, I was like, actually, I don't like this.
Yeah.
I don't like this. I don't like this.
I got one more actually too, if you slipped to me.
I should have thought about it more before we started filming, but clearly I didn't. What's your extra one?
My extra one too is adultery. I'm just not interested in it, and that's not really any fault because obviously it's got loads of stuff it can explore with characters and choices, so that's not really the fault of the writer. It's just it just does not interest me.
Fair enough.
I love true love. I love love. I love commitment. I love romance.
Love, love, love.
Yeah, I love long-lasting love. I love that. It makes me so happy. And the moment somebody breaks that in a book, I'm just like,
You were dead to me.
yeah.
Okay.
I just don't like it. It annoys me. It makes me sad. So that leaves me cold, but it's not really. But it's not really a bad fault of the author or the writer.
That's just your personal taste.
It's just what
Okay.
I like and don't like reading about.
Okay. Do you have any pet peeves?
Tell us about them.
What
In the
leaves you
comments.
cold when you read it?
We release new videos every Friday. Bye.
Bye.
Oh yeah, you did the
Ah,
it's a cold one. I can't do
see.
a
Yeah, I can't do that.
My child
I can roll my lips, but not my tongue.